Welcome to the Kristi Jones Show. This is your go-to podcast for living life to the fullest. I am a life and empowerment coach, speaker, and business owner in multifamily real estate. I am a woman passionate about helping others build a life that they truly desire. We'll talk about how to make the most out of every day, from setting meaningful goals to embracing the present moment. So join us as we explore the depths of living a life that is full of joy, purpose, and satisfaction. Well, hello, my friends. Welcome back to another week of the Kristi Jones Show, where I love to talk about all the things to live your life to the fullest. So today's episode is going to be on, I am switching gears. I had something else scheduled for this week, but I called an audible, made a game time decision. So today's episode is on recognizing the signs of when you're burnt out, feeling a little overwhelmed, how to recognize that, and then what you should do when you feel that way. So that is what we're going to talk about today. And here's the two reasons for that. One is full transparency. Woke up today, just not feeling it. It's Sunday, May 28th, and I had a big event yesterday that I spoke at. And so I woke up this morning and I had several things that I was really pushing myself to do last week, projects, work, things aligned with my work. And so I think after yesterday's event, I woke up this morning, felt like a truck had hit me. Have you ever had a morning like that where you're just like, wow? So I woke up feeling that way this morning. And so because of that, I thought, I'm going to pause what I was going to cover this week within the episode of the podcast. And I'm going to talk about what's front of mind, actually what's going on for me right now, because chances are this is going on for someone else that's hearing this episode. So if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm dressed in, I've chosen to wear a lot of color today, pink, because it lifts my mood. It's late on Sunday afternoon. So I have been resting and restoring all of today. So I could come on and record this podcast in time to get it to the editor so it publishes this week. So yesterday, and also let me share the other reason, not only because of I'm choosing to talk about this burnout, overwhelm, and what to do when you start feeling like you're hitting the wall, what to do in that case, but also May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so I thought this is a great way to kind of close out the podcast for May. So let's talk about the feeling of burnout or overwhelm. And, maybe like I'm not at the point of burnout, but I definitely feel like I need to pump the brakes today. I needed to just kind of pause. And I know myself very well. I can tell when, I've been pushing and with it being Mental Health Awareness Month, what better topic to talk about? Because I think we all can relate to this at some point or time. Honestly, it can come up at any given time. A lot of times though, let me tell you though, so this is showing up for me right now because yes, I required a lot of myself last week. But on top of that, on Saturday, I spoke at an event, Waves of Wellness, and by everything involved in preparing for that event and being a co-facilitator of that event and then speaking at that event, after it was all done, I was like, you just kind of take a breath. Can you relate to that? Where you've prepared for something, you're working towards something, and then the event happens. And then you're like, and it can even be just in your personal life, like I see this happen a lot with, big family events, holidays, when the holiday's approaching. And then as soon as that holiday's over and all the hustle bustle is over, it's like, you just kind of collapse back in your chair and take a breath. So these are great tools to incorporate in your life anytime you start to feel just that burnout, overwhelm, like you're just starting to feel run down. That's how I was feeling this morning, starting to feel a bit run down. So not only feeling run down, but feeling like drained of energy. So that's drained like physically, emotionally. So that is a great indicator that it might be time to pump the brakes just a little bit. Give yourself some of these extra things that you can do, which I will talk about next. I'm not going to leave you high and dry. We're going to talk about the signs of when you're starting to hit the wall. And then I'm going to give you some suggestions of things to do on a very regular basis. So when you A, start feeling burnt out, or B, you were just like going through a season where you got a lot going on, you can incorporate these things in your routine to make sure you don't get to that point of just feeling really run down. So let me talk about some of the signs that we tend to start feeling when we're approaching that level of like exhaustion and burnout. So exhaustion, obviously, I talked about feeling run down. And maybe another thing is you maybe start feeling a little lack of motivation, like the things that you normally like to do, you just like cannot find the energy to do it. I'm talking about everyday activities. You're like, ugh, like I have to go grocery shopping. I don't have the energy to go do that. Basic things, you just start lacking motivation to do those things. You find it difficult to concentrate. Even like basic tasks that your efficiencies, let me say that your efficiency to do different tasks really kind of starts to decline. And so you lost your edge a little bit. You just kind of notice you're just not quite as efficient as you normally are in your day-to-day activities. Sometimes emotional instability, meaning that could be like you either get really irritated really easily, or you find yourself like crying and feeling really emotional and more sensitive towards things that don't usually cause you to feel that way. So, and your irritability level is just a little more on edge. So that is another indicator that you probably need to take a look at your mental well-being and look at some things to do to build yourself back up and replenish yourself. Maybe even like when your mood gets a little like Debbie Downer, you're like negative on everything, more of a pessimistic attitude, especially if you're more just naturally like an optimistic person and generally you're like seeing the better side of things, like the glass is full instead of half empty. That scenario, if you're that kind of person and then all of a sudden you're just like uber pessimistic and just like have this little pissy attitude all the time, all negative, that's a sign that you need to pump the brakes. Another one I'm going to talk about, social withdrawal. So all of a sudden you're like really making effort to avoid any social interactions at all. So that's another indicator. And I talked about the cognitive difficulties, but even sometimes, I want to add on to that, like decision making, like you have a hard time just deciding. You're very indecisive on everything. That's a sign that you're just overwhelmed. You need to pump the brakes. You might be, going into that area of just feeling like burned out in general. So the last thing too is that I'll add on the list of kind of warning signs to look out for is you also let's say you just are being really critical of yourself, like maybe an achievement, you feel like anything you do is just not good enough. So you're being really hard on yourself. So that is another sign that, hey, let's pump how you're behaving. Pay attention that, hey, it's probably time to just kind of check in with yourself. Maybe you need to look at your schedule, look at your calendar, look at how you're choosing to spend your time. Are you just numbing yourself out with like binge watching TV? Are you, just having another glass of wine, drinking too much, doing whatever it is that you do to kind of numb yourself out? That's not the healthy way to fill yourself back up when you're starting to feel burned out. In fact, those things are probably, they're more dangerous things to do because you're just really just working against yourself when you lean into those, I call them buffering mechanisms. So if you're just trying to numb yourself out because of the burnout feelings and the overwhelm feelings, that's going to have like the effect of that is not going to be the direction that you want to go. It's going to have the opposite effect. You think it's helping, but it's not. It's rewinding everything. So I'm going to give you some other practices to do that are going to be much more helpful and going to make you feel better. It's better to do these things ahead of time, meaning try to incorporate some of this just because, not because you're hitting the wall, but just because it's good to do for your mental health, for how you feel, for your emotional well-being. But like me, I woke up this morning because I have been pushing so hard last week. Nobody's fault but my own. I am my own worst enemy at times in that department. So I had been going and having really high expectations of myself. And so then I had the actual showing up and interacting on Saturday at the event and speaking. And so when it was all over with, I just got to sit back in my chair, right? You just, and I slept really good last night, but I woke up this morning just like, I got to take a day and just do things that I enjoy, spend time with my husband, who's just been uber supportive, by the way. I mean, he knows everything that I've been trying to get accomplished, and especially this last week. And so I really just wanted to hang out with him and then just really just chill, honestly, just chill and have some quiet time. So here are some suggestions. Write these down. You know how I believe when we write things down, we remember them. So save this episode. So if you're on your walk right now, you're in the car right now, when you get home, you can jot these things down, make some notes in your journal about this. So we have to replenish ourselves. It's so crucial to do that. And when we do these things, it prevents us from those feelings of burnout. But if you need to pump the brakes and you feel all this coming on, these are great go-tos. Like have your list of what you need to do on a regular basis. So each and every day, try to take regular breaks, short breaks, little pockets of time wherever you can grab throughout the day to just kind of just take a breather, take a mental breather. For me, that looks like if I'm it really depends on what I'm doing that day. But let's say I'm doing some content creation, I'm doing a recording podcast, maybe I've got some Zoom calls going on. If me just sitting in a chair for long periods of time I just can't do it. So I start to get really flat and really uninspired, and my ability to focus just goes out the window. So every so often I have to get up. Sometimes I go out, I take a little quick walk, whatever that looks like. I have to change my environment, and I have to incorporate some movement in my downtime breaks. So that really replenishes me and recharges me in the moment. Also, a second thing would be you have to start to prioritize your self-care. So what does that look like for you? What is the self-care for you? It can be a million things. It can be activities that promote relaxation for you. They can be activities that, excite you and invigorate you. Self-care can be whatever feels good to you. And so that's so different for each of us. I mean, honestly, self-care sometimes is just sitting in a chair, flipping through a magazine, and having what I call just a no-brainer moment. Just aimlessly flipping through a magazine, maybe reading a page or two, an easy read type of book, something like that. I mean, that is a form of self-care if that feels good to you. So prioritize your self-care. Third is, I would say, to establish some boundaries. Sometimes you have to establish boundaries with people, with projects, establishing boundaries even for yourself. So, because like I said, sometimes I'm my own worst enemy. So when I see myself gravitating to a habit that for me tends to be when I'm like, teetering, like, you shouldn't be doing that. I'm generally trying to do too much too fast, or I'm pushing myself a little too much. And I need to it's the end of the day. We need to call it a day. You don't need to be, picking the project back up at 7:30 at night, at 8 o'clock, turn the brain off and rest. My husband always says, turn it off, turn it off. I honestly feel like men sometimes are better at that than women, but that's just my opinion. So establish boundaries. And a lot of times that can be establishing boundaries in your personal life, establishing boundaries in your work life, establishing boundaries with specific people. So take a look at that and what that looks like in your life. Mindfulness, that's another one I wrote down that I wanted to bring up today. So meditation, quiet time, all of that is time to really center yourself, relax and center your mind, and just calm the nervous system. Mindfulness is really important to make a regular practice for yourself. Fifth thing is moving your body. You guys, if you follow me on any of my social channels, I swear I sound like a broken record on there when it comes to moving your body, because I'm always reminding everybody, move your body every day, because it is the one thing that is just such a gift that we get to do. So we get to move our body, we get to work out, we get to exercise, whatever that looks like for you. But make sure that you make that part of your regular routine, because movement and exercise, it is so beneficial, not only for our physical health, but for our mental health. I don't know about you, but for me, when I am doing something that's challenging physically, it is such a stress relief. It's like, it's so weird how that is. It's creating stress in the body because you're having to do something, exert effort, do something tough. But when it's over, the endorphin rush is like, there's nothing that compares to it. So move your body. Number 7, we all need to do more of this. I need to do more of this. I do this definitely one day a week, but unplug from technology. Set a time frame that you disconnect. I've gotten better at waiting until a certain time in the morning, before I get in front of my laptop, before I check my email, before I look at any technology. I've gotten, I kind of ebb and flow. There's times I'm like really, really good and disciplined. And then there's other times that it's just like, it's a shit show. I'm not practicing that. But for the most part, it's try to spend my early morning time really grounding myself, getting my mental health. By that, I mean spending my time in my mindfulness practice, in my prayer time with God, in my quiet time. So that is my priority, and it really grounds. Like, it's going to be okay if we don't know about breaking news, because quite honestly, I mean, is it really breaking news? Do we really know about it? I don't really watch the news, quite honestly. I check in every once in a while to stay abreast of like what's going on in the world. But it's so negative and it's so fear-based that I just don't have time for it in my world. So I don't make it a huge priority to catch the news on a daily basis. But just unplugging from technology is a great way for you to replenish yourself and to kind of recharge yourself. Sleep. I want to talk about sleep as I'm going to wrap up as far as my tips of what to do is sleep. Sleep gets overlooked so much. Our quality of our sleep matters. And when we don't sleep well, and when we don't rest well, it really affects how we are the next day. Maybe not just one night, but especially when it goes on and on and on and on. It just makes emotionally and mentally life so much harder. So you have to prioritize your sleep. Do what you can to go to bed at the same time each night and wake up at the same time each morning. Do things in the evening that wind down your nervous system, that signal to your body and to your mind that, hey, it's time to pause. We're going to be going to bed soon. You don't do real stimulating activities that are going to watching whatever, if you're watching something really, active and crazy on TV or watching TV up until the moment you fall asleep. I'm not a big fan of that. So look at ways to plan your evening to where you're winding down. You signal your body, you signal your nervous system that we're going to rest. And I make suggestions of, I love herbal tea, hot tea, taking a bath. And I've talked a lot about this on my social media channels, and taking a bath at night. All of those things are telling my body and my brain that we're winding down, we're getting ready for bed, we're going to have a good night's sleep. So incorporate some practices for yourself and regular times that you're going to bed at the same time and waking up at the same time. So the more you can do that on a consistent basis, the better quality of sleep that you will get. So make sleep a priority and don't skimp on it. Don't overlook the fact that sleep is really good for us. And then last, I do want to say that, the type of burnout and overwhelm I'm talking about is just very mild. I'm talking about just that regular thing that we come up against every once in a while where we're just like, we need to take a break. We need to reassess where we're at on our self-care and how we're taking care of ourselves. But if you are really struggling in this area and you're just really having a hard time getting back on track, get support, reach out, talk to someone, get professional help. I mean, it's definitely, something that sometimes you need someone to kind of guide you through that process. So by no means hesitate if you feel like, or you're just really at a loss of how to feel better in this department. Seek out some help. Get a therapist, get a counselor, talk to a loved one, talk to your best friend. Get some people in your corner on this to help you figure out a plan so you don't feel so overwhelmed. So, because that's not a good feeling. I mean, it's not a good feeling to have at all. We all feel this way from time to time, but when this goes on for a long period of time, or if it's really, really heavy, you need to get some help to get through that. So I'm going to close by saying, you guys, self-care, it's not a one and done. It is an ongoing process. You got to prioritize your well-being. You really do. Because if you don't prioritize it, who's going to do it for you? I mean, you have to deal with yourself every day. We have to deal with ourselves each and every day. So do things to help yourself. Don't work against yourself. You have to replenish yourself on a regular basis. You have to find ways to manage your stress in a positive way. You have to find ways to maintain balance in your life. You have to find ways to sustain yourself. So these are all, you have to, one, get really good at recognizing when you start to feel this way. And then two, reassess the things that you're doing or not doing to help you manage the stress, manage the balance, sustain those feelings. So it's important. You can't, it's just don't overlook it. Because if you get really good at prioritizing your well-being, then you have these like far and few in between times when you feel like you're hitting the wall, feeling run down, because you're doing a lot of the daily work. You're practicing these good habits. So the more we start to practice those good habits, the farther and the fewer that we have these instances where we're like just really worn out. So, and it just happens once in a while. So take inventory of how you're doing that. Take inventory of how you're feeling, and think about ways that you can, and practices that you can incorporate into your life and into your lifestyle. They're going to make you feel so much better, so you can be flourishing. So anyways, I'm so glad that you caught this episode, and it's a great way to wrap up May, Mental Health Awareness Month, because we all should be focusing on how our mental health is, how our physical health is. When those two can just align and be just working together instead of working against each other, it makes life so much more enjoyable. Well, thanks for tuning in, and I hope that you have found value in this episode. I look forward to the month of June. I look forward to bringing you much more this month. So take care, have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.